We're here today with Harold Dougal, author, Adventures of an Idaho Mountain Pilot, and we've been recording in like a series, and this will be part 3. So Harold, that is your book. Why don't you go ahead and start telling us a little bit about it, and then some of the middle years now that we talked about before. Go ahead.
This is the first book that I've had printed and published. It was on Amazon for 8 years, and it went all over. I guess in other countries too, because I used to get letters and responses and notifications from Amazon where the book had been sold. And so then they said it was out of print. So now I've had another book printed from New York, and it's going on. It'll be published this coming week. I just talked to my publisher in New York, and she said that it's already being printed. So there'll be a second copy going out. And it has more stories and more pictures in it than the original book, but it's a good book. And it tells the same thing and added more stories in the second book than in the first one.
Be sure to keep your voice up a little bit. Harold, we were going over some of your flying exploits in our last interview. In this interview, I kind of like to talk to you about a special chapter that I read. The fellow that got killed with another pilot who is a dear friend of yours. Do you want to recall that story and what it's called in the book? You know which one I'm talking about, don't you?
Not right now.
Was that Bill? Was his name Bill?
That was killed in the airplane?
Yeah.
Yeah, his name was Bill Wayne.
Right.
And he built Pistol Creek, or he owned the Pistol Creek Ranch. And I helped him build it by flying stuff in and working at the ranch. I mixed all of the aggregate for the lodge kitchen floor by hand. We took the aggregate out of the creek that runs through the ranch, and I threw all the cement in his airplane, which was a Stinson Detroiter, and there's a picture of it in the book about the Stinson, showing my wife and I standing there with my son and a corrugated aluminum roofing strapped to the side of the airplane. That's the only way I could get it in. The Pistol Creek was strapping it on the outside of the airplane.
So there was nothing at Pistol Creek at all? It was just a ranch house there or something? And you guys
there wasn't even an airport there when I first started.
Really?
Yeah. Bill Wayne did not build the airport. The airport was built by Marv Hornback, who was first running Pistol Creek Ranch. No, at Sulphur Creek Ranch, at Sulphur Creek Ranch. And he was the operator there at Sulphur Creek, and that's how come I got started flying a 10D Traveler in there for him. That was back in 1953, and I started flying the 10D Traveler that's on the front of the book. That airplane had a new engine in it with more horsepower and a constant speed propeller, as I said in my other interview, and it made it a little bit nose heavy. I forgot to say that in the original interview, but that's why my friend, who was a little shorter than I am, could not get the airplane on a 3-point landing when it was empty because he didn't have any weight in the back to put a tail down on the ground. And so we would trade airplanes. He would fly the 10D into Sulphur Creek, and I would pick him up and give him the 6000 Traveler, which he could fly easier. And that way we were able to take care of the ranch. But I got paid the same for flying the 10D as the big one, so it didn't make any difference to me which airplane I was flying.
The particulars in your book of the way he was killed are pretty sad. Did you have a premonition of there was going to be a problem?
Yes, I did. The pilot that he hired to go in with him, I had just started. Well, I'll take this back. I started with Bradley Mining Company as their chief pilot and I was scheduled to make a patrol line flight for the Salt Lake Pipeline Company. And so Bill Wayne hired this fellow to fly him and stay in the ranch and help him work on the ranch. And I told Bill that he should not fly with that man. Now, when I was in there one day with my cousin in a Waco UPF-7 that was built in 1937, and my cousin and I landed there, and we were talking to Bill about the ranch, and Bill laid down on the couch, and I looked there, and all I could see was a dead man. It shook me up. I'm kind of psychic, and so I looked at him, and I thought, I don't know what he's so anxious about, because he's going to be dead in a month. And then when he wanted somebody to go in with him and fly the airplane when I could not fly it, I told him, I said, you make sure he flies that airplane like I've told you how to fly it, or he'll kill you. And so coming out of Sulphur Creek, or Pistol Creek Ranch, on this one Sunday morning after a heavy rain the day before, there was a lot of fog up high, and when it cleared off, they decided to take off. That airplane had a carburetor heater in it, and it could have kept the ice out of the carburetor, but when they were climbing up the canyon, the engine started stuttering, and it quit. And this pilot said, well, Bill, I guess we've had it. I'll dive it between the trees and take the wings off of it. And I thought, what a stupid remark that is. And that's what he told me when he was in the hospital laying on his back, why he crashed up the airplane like that. There were open fields on the side of the hill that he could have landed in. But I think he saw too many movies in Hollywood where they were crashing airplanes, tearing the wings off to save themselves. But he got out of it with a broken ankle, and Bill Wayne died in the wreck.
Yeah, I found that particular chapter particularly interesting.